Tune in to the Greenlight NYC show.
The ghetto is one of the richest neighborhoods there is.
Maybe there's some way we can make money from this.
La Compañía. It's a very serious Dominican gang.
$24,000 in our hands to talk.
Mike was of rain. Say no problem.
In his business, if you mess up, you got killed.
The notorious
Michael
gangster cop, ex-cop, Michael Dowd in the building, man.
In the house, thanks.
Like, just give me a quick bio on you for people that don't know that much. Let's go through it real quick.
All right, I'm a 55-year-old man today, so I'm not the guy I was in 1980s when I like to look at it like when we survived. Guys from my genre, we survived the 80s. I was a young guy. I became a cop. It was a good job.
So you started being a police officer with great intentions, to protect the community and to help others. How did that transition happen for you?
Well, you start out with altruistic values like anybody. You want to do a job. You get hired, you're excited, and then what happens is you go down a slippery slope. You begin to take steps that may be
unethical.
Yeah, we'll go with unethical.
Wait, let's talk about before the incarceration. You there's a lot of different stories. There's stories that you were involved with the A-team from Brooklyn, such as guys like King Tut, Haitian Jack, and a lot of these other guys that came up early 90s.
Yeah, but being involved is a little slightly different.
I heard stories that you would you were looking out, like you giving guys like the eye up, like, yo, you might get raided today.
Yeah. Well, Tut was a different player. He was
For those that don't know, Tut was the guy that shot Tupac.
Right.
Okay,
yeah.
For those that don't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
So now listen to this. I'm curious because when you first started, there wasn't a war on drugs.
No, there wasn't.
And then, eventually, through your time being an officer, that policy was implemented.
Right.
How did that drastically change your position?
Well, see, part of the war on drugs is the New York City Police Department didn't get that memo. We weren't allowed to arrest drug dealers because it would cost the city a lot of fucking money. So they were like, Joe, every time you locked up a little guy for a couple dimes, nickels, whatever they had, crack, pieces, they would get upset because it cost them the cops overtime, the cost of jailing them, the cost of the courts, the cost of a lawyer. And they were out before you were out with the paperwork. So
let's talk about that. How are you getting paid?
No, because I said, you gotta look at it like this. I'm getting accused of taking shit by people because I'm not making arrests and these guys are still on the corner the next minute. So instead of being pointed fingers at like, you guys ain't doing nothing, we started to do something. We got paid. So I would tax the guy on it, whatever corner I got the call on, I would tax.
Now, at a specific time, I know that you were selling drugs, you were dealing with drug dealers,
right.
You were just basically a criminal. You was just basically a gangster.
Yeah, sure.
Right? Did you ever have...
We don't deny that at some point. My career went full circle.
My question is,
Full circle.
why wasn't it ever directed towards the mafia? It was always like the hood, like the crack and the bit. That's where you.
The hood. What are you gonna do? When you're in an Italian neighborhood, you work with mobsters.
Yeah.
When you're in an urban black Spanish neighborhood, you work with the crack dealers or whoever they got.
And this was in East New York. This was in East New York, right?
Whoever's getting paid, that's who you're working with. I don't give a shit what neighborhood. The Irish neighborhood, you work with the Westies. I don't fucking care. Whoever's paying.
Yeah.
I was approached by Internal Affairs in the New York City Police Department approximately a year ago or so. In order to help them put together a couple of films so that they could show some real live character in what it is and how corruption begins and what it turns into.
Exactly.
And then the end result. So in other words, it's like if you want to go to AA, you're not going to listen to a guy who read about getting sober in a book.
How do people receive you when you're giving that advice?
Don't like me. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Let's keep it real because maybe they shouldn't.
The cops must hate you.
Well, what it is it's twofold. One thing is I give them some respect in a way because people actually, when they see some of the shit that went on in that documentary, it actually shows people what the cops lived in. Don't get me wrong. The choices that I made weren't right, but it gives the people a basis to see how the cops in the 80s, early 90s had to survive. Listen, when crack hit New York City, it was like Hurricane Sandy coming up the fucking coast, man.
Definitely.
It just boom. It leveled everybody, and we're human beings. We're all susceptible to
Were you getting high at this time? Were you doing drugs as well?
at some point. Yeah.
So what are you doing, like, as far as like to like secure some kind of like rights towards your story now?
Yeah.
I'm sure your story needs to get told.
No, yeah, but like you said, we did the documentary,
Yeah.
and my life rights was sold to Sony, and Sony owns
Okay.
it, and Sony and I are just wrestling over a few numbers right now, but
Okay.
yeah, it's on.
Who would you want to play you?
You know, they ask that question a lot, and the director of the movie wants me to say Tom Hardy, but you know, Mark Wahlberg is fighting with everybody.
I like that.
That he wants to play me.
Yes.
So it's a tussle right now.
I came into this interview thinking one thing about him and came out thinking something, knowing something totally different. You know what I mean? And
I hope it's better. I don't know.
Salute to you, the crazy caller. What was his name? Mimi or something like that.
Something MEE.
Man, listen. Be careful, man. You had these internet bloggers and stuff. You know, their thumbs are harder than anything else in the
Yeah,
world.
whatever.
Forget about
Listen.
it.
Everybody should just get along in this world, like Rodney King says, right? Why can't we all just get along?
Straight up, let's get back to the music right now. DJ Instincts, Wahida, the Tsunami team. We want to thank Mike Dowd for coming through. I'm about to smoke this cigar. I might have to roll it with something inside. This that green light NYC Tsunami.